John here and back with another review, and today I'm going to talk about and review the Batman 2022 film. Now, I did a review for this film, but I wanted to go back and redo the video. Now that it's been a few days, I've had more time to think about the film, so I wanted to go back and add a little bit more thoughts. So that's why I took down the old review and I wanted to go back and sort of redo this here. I'm gonna still keep away from spoilers, so I'm not going to go into spoiler territory that much. But like I said, I really liked this movie. And now it was directed by Matt Reeves. And when you talk about Matt Reeves, I mean, this is the same guy that directed Cloverfield, which I still haven't seen yet. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which I did see, but I can't remember anything about it. I can't tell you anything about the movie. But he did a really good job with this movie. Now, the cast. Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, Batman. I will admit, I was of the crowd when I heard about this casting. I'm like, the guy from Twilight, this is going to be bad. This is going to suck. And I was wrong. I will admit, I was wrong about Robert Pattinson. To me, he really pulled it off as Batman. And, the more I think about it, honestly, I think, to me, he's my second favorite. And that's just me. Again, it's a more younger Batman here. And I really liked his portrayal. I really liked his take on the character. As far as the other cast here, you have Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and I thought, she was decent. I mean, this is actually the first film that I've seen Zoe Kravitz in. She's been in other stuff, but I knew who she. I was aware of Zoe Kravitz, and she's got this other film out right now called Kimmy. But yeah, this is kind of my first, my first time seeing Zoe Kravitz in a film, and again, I thought she was decent. I mean, when you compare her to previous Catwomans, I mean, for me, my favorite Catwoman is always going to be Michelle Pfeiffer. She's a great actress, and Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman was sexy, and I loved her performance. To me, she'll always be my favorite. Anne Hathaway, I'll be honest, I just wasn't a fan of her Catwoman. And I know that's going to be, I'm in the minority on that one, and that's fine. But I just was not I was not a fan of her Catwoman. But Zoe Kravitz, I mean, Halle Berry, I don't want to go there, but Zoe Kravitz, again, I thought she did a decent job here. She's no Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, if I compare her to Anne Hathaway, I would say Zoe Kravitz, to me, is a better Catwoman. Then again, with the Halle Berry, Catwoman film, yeah, let's not go there. And, the chemistry between Batman and Catwoman, it's there. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to say their chemistry was, great by any means. But, I didn't mind Zoe Kravitz. Paul Dano as the Riddler. And this is a different take on the character. This is not like, what you saw in Batman Forever with Jim Carrey. That Riddler was more over the top and cartoonish and what have you. This Riddler here, is pretty much like, the Zodiac Killer or Jigsaw. And I mean, yeah, it's a different take on the character than what you've seen before. But Paul Dano, I thought he did good here too. I mean, he was also good in this other film, Prisoners, with Hugh Jackman. That's a good movie. So I do like Paul Dano as an actor. Again, this is a very dark take on the character. And, throughout the film, Batman and Commissioner Gordon are trying to, figure out what's the Riddler's the next move, and they're trying to solve these, riddles and puzzles and stuff, and yeah, so Paul Dano does a good job here. Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. I liked his performance here. I mean, like throughout the movie, it's a lot of him and Batman investigating, kind of working, together, and and I kind of like that aspect to the movie, where again it's a lot of Commissioner Gordon and Batman kind of working together as a team, trying to figure out the Riddler's next move, and I kind of said this, in another video, which I'm probably going to upload soon, that I go more into the film, that the first 2 hours of this movie is, kind of a detective story. And like, the last hour is sort of the plot unfolding. But, again, I like Jeffrey Wright in the movie. John Turturro as Falcone. It was cool to see him in the movie. John Turturro is a good actor. Colin Farrell as Penguin. And again, this is a different take on the character, different from what you've seen before, like with Danny DeVito in Batman Returns. This Penguin here is more of a mobster, like he's straight out of The Sopranos or Goodfellas. And, I liked his Penguin. I mean, yeah, it would have been nice to see, say, some of the characteristics that, we know about the Penguin, whether that be, a cigarette or, which I know they campaign for, to have a cigarette or at the least a cigar, and the studios would not have it. But, you couldn't give him a top hat, you couldn't give him an umbrella, something that we know, or like a little eyeglass, something that we know about the Penguin, that it's part of the Penguin character, that you couldn't, and maybe they can go more into that with another, with the next one. But, Colin Farrell, he, to me, does a good job here. And I kind of wish that if there's one kind of nitpick here, that we got more of that character, throughout the movie. Now, he's called the Penguin, but the character's name is Oz. Short, I guess it's short for Oswald Cobblepot. And there's even like, there's times in the movie where I'm like, that's Colin Farrell, because he disappears into the role, and really good makeup, which I see some interviews where he's talked about, took a few hours of makeup, and, I do like Colin Farrell as an actor, and like I said, he does a good job here as the Penguin. My only, thing is, I wish that, he was in the film a bit more. But you also have Andy Serkis as Alfred. He did fine. I mean, if I talk about, Alfreds of the past, my favorite's going to be Alfred Gough from, the Tim Burton movies. Michael Caine was a good Alfred. I would say Michael Caine is a better Alfred than Andy Serkis. But, Andy Serkis is not bad. I mean, he does fine. So for the most part, the cast, Robert Pattinson again, to me really pulled it off and proved me wrong. Zoe Kravitz, again, decent. Paul Dano was good. Jeffrey Wright was good as Commissioner Gordon. John Turturro, was cool to see him in the film. Andy Serkis was fine. Colin Farrell as the Penguin was good. The tone and cinematography, I thought was really cool. Like I definitely got vibes of the animated series. Because throughout the film, I mean, it's dark. I mean, literally. And, it's like there's a lot of scenes where, it's in the shadows, where characters would exchange dialogue, and, again, it's a lot of, in the shadows. It's not a brightly lit film. There's a lot of night shots, and it kind of has a bit of a dim look. But I appreciate that. I liked that. The cinematography is really good here with this movie. And again, I really appreciate that dark tone, not just dark as in gritty. I mean, it's gritty, but again, I kind of have that. It was a very shadowy texture. That's the word I'm getting at. It had a very shadowy texture throughout the movie. Some colors, but for the most part, like throughout, it's quite dark in terms of scenes between characters, or Batman going to different locations and what have you. And and it definitely reminded me of Seven. The vibes of the film. I mean, definitely reminded me of Seven, and Zodiac. So it has that kind of David Fincher feel to the movie. Like if David Fincher directed a Batman film, this is kind of what it would look like. The score. I have to mention the score by Michael Giacchino. I really like the score here to this movie. It definitely, reminded me a little bit of Danny Elfman's score, and with a little bit of touch of, the Dark Knight, score trilogy. But I really love the score here to this movie. To me, it was a highlight of the movie, hearing the score, especially in the one scene where, maybe some people have seen this clip already, but where the Batman's going after the Penguin, and he hits the car flips over, Penguin is upside down, and Batman is walking towards the Penguin, and the music, ramps up, ramps up, ramps up, and again, great score by Michael Giacchino. Again, definitely a highlight of the movie, and it definitely reminded me a little bit of the Danny Elfman score, for the Tim Burton movies, and just had that kind of like old school sound to it. And it's definitely going to be a score that I'm going to be going back and listening to. I just really love the score here. The runtime, this film is at 3 hours pretty much. And I will say, with the runtime, yes, I mean, there could have been some scenes that could have been trimmed back. I mean, really, you could have cut off 20, 30 minutes of this movie. Now, I was invested in the story, throughout the movie. It helps that you have a good cast, really good direction, the cinematography and look at the film. You got all these ingredients that I've talked about. It definitely complements the runtime. That it's not too pretentious or too, whatever word insert word. But I was invested. I was invested in the story, and Batman trying to, unfold the Riddler's plot, and Batman, Commissioner Gordon, their dynamic, and so on and so forth. And yes, I mean, like I said, I look at the runtime, and yes, I do believe that they could have trimmed off 20, 30 minutes. But again, it's the things that I've already talked about that, helped me get through the movie, that I really enjoyed it. But I understand, the nitpicks out there about the runtime. So I do, again, understand it. And I think about, if I have any pros and cons about the film. Like I said, I wish that the Penguin was in it a bit more. The pacing, could have been trimmed back a little bit. And there's films that I've enjoyed before that have been 3 hours. I mean, JFK, really good movie. Casino, I mean, that's almost 3 hours, right? So there can be really good, like good movies that have been 3 hours, but it's kind of that. I mean, it's kind of a fad now because every film has to be 3 hours, and not every film has to be 3 hours. Sometimes you have to, edit. Sometimes you have to pace yourself, or cut back on scenes that. I mean, there's some really good scenes in this movie, and it's well shot. I've talked about that already. But it goes back to the thing of, you know, not every film has to be overly long, and I wish that filmmakers would just learn that. But in this case, where again I was into the story, I was into this cast and what have you, I was into this world here. I'm not going to rant too much about the runtime, but again, I do understand the critiques. And overall thoughts on the movie. Again, it's a really good film here, and I would say it's definitely going to be a favorite of mine this year. Even though I haven't seen too many films this year of 2022, but this is gonna be one of my favorites, and I'm not gonna say this is a 10 out of 10 flawless movie here. I'm not gonna you know again put it on that pedestal. I know a lot of people. Again, I know, and I've seen the praise, for the movie and all that stuff. This movie does have some flaws, but I really like this movie, and yeah, so with aside from a couple of nitpicks, again, this is probably one of my favorites of this year, and again, the cast is solid, the great score. Definitely to me a standout aspect of the movie. And the look at the film, and the cinematography and the darkness and the shadowy texture throughout the movie, I just really liked. I really not liked, but I should say loved. I really loved what they did here with this movie, and as far as what's going to be next, we'll see what happens. But yeah, the Batman, I really liked it. So yeah, that's my review of the Batman. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.